Remington Yellow Jacket 22 long rifle, pistol versus rifle. So I'm going to do this test in my Rossi RS22 with an 18-inch barrel and my Taurus TX22 with a 4.1-inch barrel. So this stuff kind of looks like a little FBI load. It's a truncated cone hollow point, which is kind of similar to a semi-wad cutter hollow point. So the Remington Yellow Jacket is a 33 grain truncated cone hollow point rated at 1500 feet per second. It is listed as a small game load, as is most 22 cartridges are, but I want to kind of test them and see how they would do as SHTF self-defense cartridges. So we're going to see what we get in the rifle and the pistol. So I'm going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy I get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic gel test. So I'm going to go into plain 10% clear ballistics to see what the best potential of those cartridges are. No denim in the way that could clog a hollow point, no rib simulation to slow down its potential for penetration. Then I'll move on to doing more of a real world simulation where I'm going to have 4 layers of denim on this first 3-inch piece that represents hitting a pectoral muscle, followed by a 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard that represents hitting ribs or sternum, 16 more inches of clear ballistics, then another 1/4-inch MDF at the back to represent hitting back ribs. Clear ballistics is roughly half representation of the density of flesh, so 3 inches and 16 inches is more like 1.5 inches and 8 inches in an actual living target. So really what this represents is about a 9.5-inch thick individual at the back ribs. So we'll do a plain clear ballistic shot, then we'll do a real world simulation shot, and then I will shoot at the steel target with these and see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. So let's get started with this test. All right, first up, we'll run this through the rifle. So 33 grain truncated hollow point rated at 1500 feet per second. So we should come close to that in this rifle, hopefully. So let's see how close we get to 1500 feet per second in my rifle here. $13.64, $13.25, $13.35, $13.36, $13.29. So they were definitely pretty optimistic about 1500 feet per second. And more rifle on a 22 isn't necessarily going to make it more powerful, because at that point, you know, it's not a very powerful cartridge. So going beyond that doesn't necessarily add more velocity than that. So let's see what we get here. And our pistol didn't want to feed on that first round. Let's see what we get in the pistol here. $1,024, $1,035, $1,071, $1,033, $1,044. So, you know, not particularly impressive, because it is only a 33 grain bullet. So let's hit our ballistics gel block and see how this round does between those two different velocity ranges there. All right, so let's see what we get with this through our rifle, through our plain clear ballistic shot. No denim in the way that can clog a hollow point, no rib simulation that might potentially slow down its penetration. So let's see what we get with our Yellow Jacket and our rifle. All right. Now let's hit it from our pistol. Let's take a look. All right, so I'm actually pretty surprised here, because I wasn't expecting to see any expansion from the pistol, but we definitely did get expansion from the pistol. And we have energy dump in this first 3-inch piece. And what I mean by that is basically, do I see damage that's more than a straight line right away, indicating it started to expand out and start to put its energy into the target right away? I do see energy dump with both. So what we got going on here is a pretty good amount of damage going on with the one from the rifle, more than the one from the pistol. And we went to a penetration depth of right at about 15 1/4 inches. It does look like there's expansion. From my angle, it looks like it may have broken a little more, but it's really hard to tell how big that is. But it does look like the one from the pistol, at least from my eyes, looks like it's more intact, like there's a bigger hollow point. And that one went to, I know parallax will throw this off a little bit, but we went right to 10 1/2 inches of penetration. The weird parallax of this camera will make it seem like it's about an inch up more than that, but yeah, we're at 10 1/2 inches, which honestly for a little light 33 grain 22 isn't terrible penetration. That's not bad. So let's put on our rib simulation, put on our denim, and see how these will do in our real world simulation. All right, our real world simulation, 4 layers of denim, followed by 3 inches of clear ballistics that represents hitting a pectoral muscle, followed by a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard, followed by 16 more inches of clear ballistics, and another 1/4 inch MDF at the back to represent hitting back ribs. If it goes through that back rib simulation, there's a possibility a round can pass through an attacker. Very highly unlikely with 22s, but let's see what we get here. See what we get with this round through the rifle. All right. Now let's see what we get with that round going through the pistol. Let's go take a look. All right, so very surprising because it brought this performance more similar to each other. I wouldn't have thought that with about a 300 feet per second difference in velocity that you would see almost the same thing. That's weird. There's a little more energy dump in this first 3 inches going through the denim with the rifle shot than with the pistol shot, but honestly, what we're seeing here, there's not a big difference there. Now, if we look at this first rib simulation, we can see what's going on here a little bit better. Full expansion here with the one through the rifle, but with the one through the pistol, no expansion. So basically what's going on here is this is hitting is expanding pretty big, and because there's so much extra energy, it's going to push to where it goes to. But with this, because it didn't expand with the lack of energy it's working with, you know, it's a smaller diameter not being expanded, so it's going to be able to go a little bit closer to what the other one penetrated to. So the one through our rifle, we penetrated to about 9 3/4 inches of penetration, and that bullet expanded. So that went in straight, did pretty well. The one from our pistol, we went to, I'm gonna say 10 1/4 inches. So just a little bit more, maybe ½ inch more with the one from our pistol, but you know, no expansion. But honestly, when you look at this though, even though one got really good expansion and the other one didn't, can't really say there's a big difference in what it did in there. All I can say is that it's more consistent from the rifle than from the pistol. But honestly, you know, this is pretty close performance, you know, no matter which gun it's fired from. But overall, a little bit better performance from the rifle, obviously. So let's pull these out of the block. We'll take a close-up look at these bullets. Then I'll shoot our steel and see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets going through plain gel. Here's the one from our pistol. Here's the one from our rifle. So our rifle here, yeah, it expanded and then it kind of broke that hollow point skirt back and just, you know, starting to fall apart now. So it does that at high enough velocities. Now at slower velocities, you know, that hollow point will peel back and then it stays intact. So this is honestly pretty perfect for a defensive cartridge in 22 from a pistol. And honestly, a lot of the cartridges you see out there that are designed to do this don't actually do this from a pistol. So I'm pretty surprised that it did that from a pistol. It acted pretty good. Now when we look at the ones going through our rib simulation, everything reversed basically. And And I see that quite a bit. It's like once you lower that expansion threshold a little bit by putting fabric up, you know, rounds that will fragment will then not fragment as much through the real world simulation, because that denim just slows that expansion process down just enough that after, you know, it goes through that denim and hits the gel, it doesn't basically explode. So one from our pistol, just mangled up just a little bit. Not really what I would call expansion, but it changed a little bit, deformed quite a bit. Not great, but it didn't significantly underpenetrate forward 22. So not bad overall to look at, you know, a 22 pistol doing this, plain gel, and then through a real world simulation. That's actually better than average, so not bad. Now our rifle here, through our rib simulation and denim, we actually got good expansion overall. So as far as penetration goes and expansion and all of that, I think our rifle did a little bit better than our pistol, but honestly that's not a bad pistol 22 round. So that's a close-up look at those bullets. All right, 14 yards from the target, so this is just our practical shootability test. So I'm just gonna get a front sight picture, pop off these rounds as fast as I think I can hit the target, and see if there's a huge difference between how well I can do it with the rifle versus the pistol. So let's see what we can do with our yellow jacket. 14 yards from the rifle here. And it appears we have kind of a jammed case in there. Kind of a stovepipe style jam. And honestly don't think I can get that out right now. It's in there kind of at a weird angle. So I'm gonna have to go get a screwdriver or something, because I can't pop that out very well. Yeah, I'll be right back. All right, let's try that again. Keep going here. Rifle. All right, so that stuff shoots pretty well. So let's see what I can do here. Same test from our pistol here. Oh yeah. So it functioned fine in the pistol, just fine. I thought, you know, I'd gonna see some malfunctions in this. Not really seeing any malfunctions in this. So just for fun, let me back it up to 75 yards and see how these things will shoot from some more distance. All right, 75 yards away, which is 225 feet away. So I'm just gonna aim center mass and fire slow and see where I can hit with these rounds. So yellow jacket from the rifle. Let's see how this stuff does. All right, I think I missed that first one. I got a dud round. And it's another one of these weird issues. It feeds the next round in, and then there's a stovepipe style jam on top of that. So I have to try to clear out this round that's in there or something. And that cleared that stovepipe case. Interesting. I'll keep going. So air impacting just a little bit high for my point of aim. Let's see what I can do with those rounds from the pistol here. honestly, I couldn't tell if I was hitting or missing. I was just kind of aiming, kind of center mass. So very interesting here overall. So what I'm seeing here is interesting because it didn't seem like it was particularly reliable on that rifle, but I didn't have a single issue in the pistol with reliability. So maybe just that rifle doesn't like that ammo. But honestly, that's not bad because, you know, whenever I do videos, I've been doing this for the past probably 8 months. You guys have probably noticed that my chronograph errors have went away when I do my main tests through revolvers or centerfire pistols. And the main reason for that is because a lot of times I wasn't getting my chronograph lined up perfectly right before I would do my videos. So I would fire, but I wasn't actually firing over the sensors quite well enough. So I've been bringing out my TX22 pistol here and lining up that chronograph and firing shots over it. And sometimes I'll get error, and I'll just move that chronograph just maybe a ½ inch one way. And then I'll fire 10 rounds through the pistol, no errors, and then I'll do my main test, no errors. That was the main problem with my chronograph for years. But doing that for every video, I've been bringing out like bulk ammo, like bulk Winchester, bulk Federal, whatever I can get my hands on. Sometimes Remington. And a lot of times, I can't go 3 rounds without this thing malfunctioning with that junk ammo. So I'm really surprised that I'm shooting the yellow jacket here and I didn't get a single malfunction in this pistol. So this pistol seems to like that, and you know, it's probably that nose. It probably feeds quite well through a pistol, but through a rifle it just doesn't want to feed so well, or maybe the power level is just kind of weird. It doesn't want to cycle that bolt very well, but it works fine in the pistol. So interesting here. As far as terminal ballistics go, not bad overall for what it is. You know, I've tested several 22 rounds, and a lot of times you get similar results to this, but this was very consistent results across the board. So there's nothing magic about this ammo. You know, terminal ballistics wise, it didn't perform amazing, but it didn't perform bad, and it was consistently performing, and it was reliable out of the pistol. So I would say it's not the worst choice out there for an SHTF defensive cartridge. So that's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.